about 50,000 votes more than them. And we have 7 seats in parliament more than the combined opposition. That's a huge victory. And so the victory comes with a mandate from the people. We intend by 2031, I'm looking forward to working for 2031 when the PP would emerge victorious again, that we are going to build on what we have accomplished now. We've made significant inroads into many communities. We have maintained the Indo-Guyanese support and Amerindian support to a large extent. We have grown significantly in Afro-Guyanese communities. A sizable part of that community has voted for us. And many others stayed away because they did not want to give us the vote, but they didn't want to give anyone else to. And that's a large group that we believe that if we work hard in their interests, that we can win that support too, as well as some others who may not have supported us because of some of the issues that I will talk about now that have been of primary concern to them. So we're keeping our ears open. We're keeping our fingers on the pulse of people who supported us, what their concerns are and what kind of help they need, and they will get the help. And we are keeping our pulse on those who did not support us and the reasons why they didn't support us. There are some who would never support us for no reason whatsoever. And that, you can't change that. But there is a sizable group out there that still could be convinced based on performance. And the Indo-Guyanese and the others, people take that vote for granted. They don't support us because of race, because of our track record. People support us because of our track record of delivery. You just listen to a man like Winston Jordan saying, the farmers should stop growing rice. Granger telling people rice is private business. With all the woes that the rice farmers have today because of an international problem with market, they know that we have been supportive of the industry through drainage and irrigation to farm to market roads, without which you can't function. Price support, fertilizer, seed paddy, new varieties, constantly there. We can't create a market for all of the rice we produce because we don't consume it here. But we've been doing a lot of work opening up markets globally. We can't consume all of it, so we can't purchase it. And they know that instinctively. On the other hand, people say, just ignore the sector, ignore the miners, like APNU did. We're working even now with the mining community. So I just wanted to say to people, we're hard at work, and we shall be so for the next 5 years in government. Now, many people believe that the term was not started as yet because Parliament has not been convened, because we don't want Azruddin Mohammed to be sworn in as opposition leader. It has nothing to do with that. We will convene Parliament within the constitutionally mandated time, and whether he's elected in Parliament or not, because I saw them mislead people by posting he's opposition leader elect. There's no such post in the Constitution. But Team Mohammed, I don't think they even understand that. It's only when you vote in Parliament, all the members of the opposition, then you have an opposition leader. But he believes that that will give him immunity from prosecution here locally and globally for the criminal activities that he's been engaged in for a long period. In fact, that is his fervent hope and that of his family. You see them going ballistic over the convening of Parliament, so if he's opposition leader, then maybe the US wouldn't touch him. The fact of the matter is the United States of America has just put out a reward for a sitting head of state in the neighboring country, Venezuela, 50 million United States dollars. And he's the head of state for his arrest or capture. 50 million US dollars reward for that. So our parliament, unlike other parliaments, doesn't give you immunity. But the whole family, they're going crazy because, and I'll talk a bit about that, because for a long time I didn't speak of them. And I thought we're done with elections, we move on elsewhere. But they keep misrepresenting what the PPP stands for. They keep playing them the victim. They keep sucking people into their web of lies to protect themselves. And so I will speak extensively about them and their recent utterances a little bit later. But once the parliament is convened, we will pursue the agenda we've set ourselves in the election period and the agenda that we went to the people of this country with. I said it at the convention center, I think 2 weeks ago, when I had a press conference there. That agenda that we campaign on is not subjected to further approval of any civil society group or news media. We don't take our mandate from civil society or STABROEK News or someone else that wants the government to seek their approval or approbation for any initiative we pursue. That mandate came from the people of Guyana. They voted on that mandate. And whilst we'd have to subject ourselves to the laws of the country, the financial laws, the fiscal laws, etc., whilst these projects have to be implemented in a transparent manner, going through the approval of Parliament, the agenda is not subjected to negotiation or renegotiation. That agenda was established by the people of this country. And what were there? The better education, health care, more help for our pensioners, our children, people living with disabilities, single parents, helping people to own more homes and to build homes, fixing up our communities, cleaner, safer communities, getting more security in our country, creating better paying jobs for our people, spreading the initiatives, the economic activities outside of Region 4, because we've had a huge spurt of growth in this region and a lot of opportunities in the region, but we still have 9 other regions of the country where we have to migrate more business opportunities to those regions through a series of economic activities that we'll support either directly through financial injection from the Treasury or through the creation of a series of incentives that could be fiscal in nature or infrastructure and other support in nature. But clearly the goal of the government is to expand economic activities in all of the other regions of the country, so we make it easier for people who live in these communities to have jobs and better paying jobs. That agenda is not negotiable. And so every week they want to repurpose and reestablish the agenda. You listen to the GHRA and the STABROEK News editorials and the Kaito News and the others, and they want to establish the agenda every day. The agenda has been fixed for the 5 years. The people voted on it. It's now how they get implemented. And we have to implement them in a very transparent manner. The first reform that the government will pursue and is aggressively pursuing President Ali spoke of it in his inaugural address. He said, I'm going to improve procurement in the country. So we want to make procurement fairer. We want the procurement to have certain carve-outs for people, small contractors, so that more of them could be brought into the core of contractors. We want better quality work. We want a more transparent system of tendering. And so we're already working on this agenda. One of the first manifestations you will see next year is a procurement website that will now advertise contracts around the country. So the current way of doing this is you put ads in newspapers mainly. So in 2024 alone, the cost to the Treasury of putting out those ads in the newspapers was nearly $800 million. That went to the newspapers. And once it goes in at one day, it's in the newspaper, except for the online edition. If people go and read it, it disappears. People can't read it the following day because it's not in the newspaper for the following day. If we have a procurement site now, once it goes up there, people can go to that site, and for the duration of their, the period when the tender is valid for, that is the advertisement, it shall be on the site. So you can then go there, you will see what the opportunities are. People don't have to go and buy newspapers now and scan the newspapers. For this, they can check from their phones wherever they live across the country. People have phone, they have now internet facilities in all, including in the Amerindian communities. They can check procurement opportunities across Guyana on that site. We will amend the law to ensure that that happens, and we will also be using the online media outfits to carry more of the ads because they reach more people. So we are not going to cut out ads totally, but we can cut down the cost or give online media outlets that get no share of this ad, although they reach more viewers often than the newspapers themselves. It's a more democratic system. You're going to hear the complaints from the STABROEK and the Kite Shore. All of them, they always say that because they believe they got a God-given right to government money and government ads. It must not be, they want efficiency in everything else, but not in that sector. So we have a duty to have efficient, use government money efficiently. And that would be the most efficient use of the government advertising budget. So you watch out for them going and complain. They've already been complaining globally. Oh, the government not giving us enough money, as though they, the people of this country have a duty to fund their newspapers or everything else, their activities. Watch out for the complaints to start soon. But that will be something that we want to do. And it's all in keeping with what the president said in his inaugural address. I want to make the system more transparent, more accessible to every Guyanese, and because definitely that would be accessible. Anybody from their own home, in their own home, they don't have to go and hunt down now newspapers to look for ads any longer. That will be a very efficient system. So look out for that. We're already working on it. We already made it clear that this gambling that has blossomed and created a series of negative problems from our communities, breaking up families, creating hardship for a lot of single parents, mothers especially, where people utilize the money that they have, their income, to all day be online gambling, because what we have now is gambling on demand. It is on every phone. It's an app, and it's facilitated by the local establishments and a very liberal licensing policy and a very liberal taxation policy. So expect stronger regulation in this area and appropriate taxes. Now, when we started this out, it was at the hotels. We said we want to stimulate or to support revenue stream for hotels, because when we look at the feasibility of many of the big buildings, they claim that they just renting the rooms would not support the repayment of the investment. So that's how it started way back. We passed the casino, their license to allow casino in hotels. They have certain conditions as though the hotel has to be 150 rooms and more to qualify for a casino license. You have to have a certain level of service. That kept it tight. But the moment when you have 400 or 500 outlets in every village across the country and it's run on an app, it's creating a major social problem. I know some people even in here might be gambling on the app here, but it is right even in here. But expect changes, because it's destroying people's. If they want to gamble, they can go to the appropriate unit, leave their hometown and travel, etc. Not sit down in the home all day and use up the children's money or their income. If you wanted, you can continue doing that, but you'd have to pay the appropriate taxes. So this, because if you can't appeal to a number of these people to accumulate anything, their entire future of accumulation, to build a home, to get a house, if they can, as I said before, the last press conference, if they would sell out or starve their child to gamble, how could you talk to them about owning a home or owning something else? And we have to change this mindset, and we can do it through the taxation system. We're not denying anybody right, but you want to do that, it becomes a high cost activity. And you do it, and expect changes in that, and aggressive changes in that area too. And we have been bombarded with sad stories. The president has met with a number of people. I'm personally here at Freedom House every week about families breaking up because of the same issue. Everything, every bit of money they have in the home, one person in the family would use up. So we're not going to allow that to continue. And then the next thing is the religious organizations have been talking to us too about this. So you're going to see lots of changes in this regard. The next issue is we're advancing aggressively on the land and housing policy. So it is something that we want to be able to almost start budgeting for in the new budget, although we'd have an early budget. But to get to that, you have to have preparatory work done in two areas, two of the promises that we made. One is to get 40,000 housing units built in this country. So that's about 8,000 per year in 5 years. To build 8,000 units per year, you'd have to do over 20 per day. That is a lot of units you would have to build per day. So it requires a different level of planning, execution, and starts with conceptualization, planning, and execution. This is not giving out 50 houses more to a man who can take 3 years and do it with poor quality material and the house cracking and all of that sort of stuff. The wall, because we've had that experience with a lot of the local contractors and some others who've been building for the government, and then people go into these units and it's shoddily done, or alternately they're waiting for ages for them to complete. I've spoken to no less than about 50 young professionals who came here, who are waiting. They got their units being built. Some of them are paying mortgages 2 times, and these guys the contractors are taking a long time delaying the output, which is completing the homes. So we have to, it's a large scale task. Given our local capability, we can't handle all of this. So our local firms would be best served if they could come up with partnerships. You would have to have partnerships with international groups. I will advise them, they have about a week more before the ads close for us to conceptualize, to look at what housing units we're going to build. They're putting in different proposals now. We'd have to examine the quality of the material, their pace of implementation, whether they have financial capacity to complete this large-scale task. So I would advise now all the local contractors who are interested, you can't do this on your own. You have to get together in larger groups, because to do this if you get 1,000 units to build a year, you have to do 3 houses per day. You know, taking out holidays and so. You have to do 3 houses per day. Which person can handle that now using the same method of construction? So we'd have to change the method of construction. You'd have to change material. They'd have to bring factories here to produce the housing material. So a lot of prefabricated things where you're producing them in the factory and you're just assembling on site and using like good certified material, but paneling material, etc., that you can move faster, that are environmentally friendly and durable and wouldn't crack and all of that. So that's what we are working on now. Before the ads close, I would urge you, so you don't say you don't have opportunity, to put in your expression of interest now, because we're working on that to start aggressively next year with this housing program. That's the first element. The second element is, how do we help people to build? Some don't even have to build with government. They have their own house, they want to build their own homes, or help them to upgrade their homes. So we are exploring different ideas. In some communities, maybe the building material. We've spoken to some Amerindian communities, like there are 3 options now. Create a village fund for people to get the help there, or alternately to buy the material to give to them, or a grant. We haven't settled on which model we'd use. It could be either one of those models or a combination of all 3. In the coastal area, it could be a different model, how we help people along the coast. But we said we'd help people to build, and we want to make sure that there's money in the budget to do that. And we're working now on what sort of model we will establish. So a lot of work is taking place behind the scenes. A lot of the things we promised not going to fall out the sky just like that. Require a lot of work. The next thing is the development bank that I spoke of 2 weeks ago. The development bank, we're already looking at the structure of that bank. We want the bank to have chapters or lending programs in all the regions of our country. We want to be able to leverage the 0 interest for their loans up to a certain level, working with the commercial bank system so that those who need to start small businesses beyond the level that they can get a 0 interest loan for, that we can leverage it with the commercial bank to do a blending where they can, in exchange for the government to undertake part of the risk, they can get lower interest rates and longer term credit from the commercial banks. We're exploring all of these now to move that initiative forward. So that is another thing, and something else we promise. The president has, over the past several weeks, been talking a lot about business opportunities, from data centers to agro-processing, and he's been mentioning several of these, to fertilizer plant, to transport and logistics, about monetizing the gas in a gas company that would be owned nationally. That is consistent with what we said. We want to migrate business opportunities to other regions of the country, create new sources of wealth creation, support the creation of new business in Guyana and business owners, small business, but also it is part of the fulfillment of the promise that we made, that we want to structure a few business opportunities in government in the form of share ownership, that these companies that could generate a lot of income from government opportunities could be owned by Guyanese by selling shares to Guyanese, and then to underwrite the return on these, the investment. This is, so you hear a lot of talk about it, but when you think about the framework in which he's mentioning all of these things in, it's consistent with what we promise: expansion of small business and business opportunities, creating more jobs, creating more wealth, getting more Guyanese to own business opportunities that are based on government, lucrative government activities, particularly in the oil and gas sector, especially people who may not have a large sum of money to start a business, or who may not be interested in that. They could then, through a passive investment in shares, in equity, supplement their income rather than have that income sitting in the bank as savings and earning a return that is significantly low than they would get from an equity sort of investment. So that's the framework in which all of these conversations are taking place, and you see a lot of them taking place, but sometimes the context is not clearly understood by people, including our supporters. Why are we talking about this? It's part of the fulfillment of our vision. And promise. This Coke is flat. So these are just some of the things we're doing. Of course, there's a lot of work on other things. For example, I mentioned it before. Where do we start with all of these concrete drains that will generate thousands of small contracts for people? We want to start next year. So it means mapping the city, mapping the communities right across Guyana, especially coastal communities where you need that, and preparing to, because we put in big budgets now to start doing this. We're looking for land for landfill sites across the country because we promise better, cleaner communities. So we want every NDC and the villages, the big villages, to have places where they can take the garbage that's not far away from their communities and process the garbage, so that we would support their, through more funding and through the provision of equipment, all of these NDCs and tongues, to it the capability to clean the place up, which is something that our communities want. A lot of that is being done. We've already been having discussion on the two big airport type projects, the hinterland airstrips. Every year we talk about doing a couple. We're working on a big project, but to do them differently now, maybe concrete projects because it's hard to get the material in, so they would last forever, you know, like very, very long period. And the Lethem Airport, the municipal airport, which would have an international link for agro-processing. Soon you'll see a prospectus come out for the private construction and operation of that airport, because we believe we can make Region 9 a major hub for food processing and for export of food, etc. So I'm just going down randomly and a lot of the things. There are hundreds of other things that we're working on. You see a big push now to complete the gas to energy project that was in the news. I think the contractor himself spoke about where they are with this, the challenges they have. We're sitting on that. The transmission mains that we're working on now. I think last week the cabinet just gave approval to create a loop system for more efficient use of power that can reduce blackouts, because it's linear now. If the break, as you know, you have a break here, everyone then loses power. But if it's circular, you can route the power through the loop. We're working on that. The big transmission main project to Berbice, that's being worked on aggressively. The solar, you recall, we awarded contract for over 30 megawatts of solar power in Region 2, 6, and 10. Those are far advanced. We intend to expand the provision of power in the Amerindian communities. In these areas, we've had a lot of requests, and the mini grids. All of this is being planned now to roll out so that we can improve the power situation there. The big roads are already being designed, the ones we promised. The highways being designed, and the feasibility studies are being completed a long time back for these roads. You just have to expand them. They're single roads, so you just have to expand them. So a lot of that is being done now in preparation for the new budget, which will come early, and hopefully we can then advance a lot of these measures in the country. These are just a few of the things I wanted to mention. I saw this week that EXXONMOBIL, Guyana chief, said, converting into liquefied natural gas, not a priority. Let me make this clear. When we said we want to monetize the gas, and that we were going to go out for an expression of interest to get a company that would work with us in a tripartite way, and with us and Exxon in a tripartite way. We're serious about it. And we made it clear that we want to do this earlier rather than later. And we made it clear that we want to use the associated gas, and we want to ensure that Haimara and Pluma, that the gas there are utilized by Exxon, or if they don't want to move to the project, then we get some other contractor who might want to use it for a project. So I hope Exxon doesn't believe that we are putting it on a back burner, because they're talking sometime, oh, this is not, LNG is not a priority. Now, anything that would make the project feasible will be a priority for us, because it will bring a revenue stream to the country. So we made it clear at the beginning that when this project is being examined by all the parties, that we have an open mind now as to the use of the gas, that the most feasible use should be pursued, the one that brings the greatest return to Guyana and to our people. And that would also justify the investment, because we are not putting in the investment, it will be done by private individuals, so they have to have a say in what the gas is used for. But that is what we intend to pursue. So we haven't taken any option off the table in the pursuit of this project as yet. And LNG is one of those very feasible options, and that could be done faster because you can do it through a floating platform. I hope Exxon doesn't think that by trying to take this off the table, which it seems as though they're doing by saying it's not a priority, that they would delay this project that they were not initially interested in, because the infrastructure to promote other use of the project will take much longer than a floating LNG structure to use the gas. So I hope I'm wrong, because I have not spoken to them as yet, but since he mentioned this is not a priority, let me say it returns anything that will monetize the gas and bring a revenue stream to our people will be a priority for us. So I have to disagree with him here. I see the GHRA, and I didn't want to speak about this Dodo organization and this Dodo McCormack. He wasted time, been here fossil about 200 years, been there, negative. I think he hates this country. So GHRA warns against partisan hijack of constitutional reform. He didn't say a single word. When APNU promised this in 2015, and they got Nigel Hughes, paid him a ton of money to produce a report that never saw the light of day. In fact, if you go back to when he was questioned about the report, he said, I submitted this report, but we can't find the report until now. And it was under Nagamutu. Nothing happened. We made a promise. We said we will go back to the model that we used when we had the extensive constitutional reform when I was president. The model was 5 from the government, 5 from the opposition, and 10 from civil society. We put that in our manifesto in 2020, and we put in place a constitutional reform commission with that body. 10 from civil society, 5 from government, and 5 from opposition. We didn't even say 10 from government. That's what we put in place. The commission has been established. They can hold consultations across, they will hold consultations. They can have sectors that will make reports, but individuals can write them too. So how would be, if you are not happy with being part of a sector, you can write to the Constitutional Reform Commission and lay out all your views on what you propose to change in the Constitution. Their job is to listen to people, have hearing, etc. How could we a partisan hijack? He didn't say a word. And I know why he didn't say a word, because the GHRA, APNU paid them some money, hired them to do something for the police, and then one of their members was placed with a healthy, really healthy sum of money, placed on the prison reform, what they call it, Granger had all of these things, commission of inquiry, and to produce some report there. They were in bed with APNU. Didn't care about constitutional reform then. Didn't care about the report that we spent money on that never surfaced. Now they didn't even care too much when Granger refused to accept the results of the no confidence motion in flagrant violation of our Constitution. They didn't have to say much when he unilaterally appointed the chair of GCOM in flagrant violation of the Constitution and 25 years of common practice between the political parties. I didn't have a word to say about this. Now he's talking about GHRA warns against partisan hijack of constitutional reform, when the Constitutional Reform Commission is 5-5-10. These people are a waste of time, all the time. And he wants to go back to the past. So I just saw it, and I just thought I'd share my view, because every time I talk about this group here, I lose some energy. You know, I get tired with them. They'll never give up. So in the last couple of weeks, we have had two major sets of issues. Very interesting. Azruddin Mohammed and his father were indicted in the United States of America on 11 counts of mail fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering. Serious offenses in the United States of America that have massive jail terms attached to them. In fact, the maximum penalty for each of the 11 counts is 20 years imprisonment. If you go to the United States, the laws of the US, and you Google it online, and you check mail and wire fraud, you will understand that what they did was mail and wire fraud. If you use through electronic communication in the United States, or even mail, and if it's interstate, it becomes federal. But anytime you use their infrastructure, which the Mohammeds use liberally, you can be charged, and you use it to defraud anyone, a person or an institution, whether that institution is a United States institution or a United States citizen, or an international institution, or a person who is a non-citizen of the United States of America, is the victim of the fraud, living in another country, they can charge you for wire and mail fraud. So I've heard this stupid explanation of, oh, why would the US prosecutors indict him if the victim on these charges, when the main victim of the tax evasion is a Guyanese institution and Guyana? They need to check their law. So that's the first thing. The second stupid thing that they talk about, and you have some really stupid people in their camp, they claim that they're the victim of PPP persecution. So you recall them talking about the PPP. In fact, a few Azruddin Mohammed, on several occasions, have said to the public, at Umaniyana, when he went to vote, I think observed the vote on the discipline services vote, gave interviews with the local media and said, the matters in the United States of America would be resolved, implying that there will be no consequences for him or his father. Those matters would be resolved. They would not result in an indictment, in him being charged in the United States of America. So we've established now that he lied to the people of Guyana. He lied to his own supporters by saying, oh, these are matters that will go away after the elections. They will go away. In fact, on September 21st, they were mocking me to say, Jagdeo said that there'd be indictments on all of that because these are serious crimes. And as he was lying, look, Azruddin Mohammed is still here, nothing has happened, etc. Claiming, and then the day after he gets indicted, he then says PPP made him get indicted. After saying we were lying on him all along. So you can't have it both ways. We were lying that for misleading people that he would be indicted. Then when he gets indicted, it's a PPP conspiracy. So I will come back to that matter in a moment. But let's talk a bit about the other matter. This week has been dominated by talk about collaboration between the PPP and APNU, or more than that, we struck a deal and that deal resulted in the outcome in a few elections, particularly in regions 10, 8, and 4 that we currently have. So let me go back about deal with this collaboration, word collaboration. From the beginning, the first week I sat here and I said, the Mohammeds, if they come after the PPP, which they were doing, they started doing when they started their campaign, we will defend ourselves. And they issued a release, and then the same week I said, we are aware they were having discussions with APNU and AFC way back in the past. From the moment they were indicted, not indicted, they were sanctioned. In mid-2024, when they were sanctioned, and the PPP said, you're sanctioned, we're not going to put our country at risk by doing business with you, because the United States government made it clear our banks could not do business with them. Anyone who does business with them could be subjected to sanctions. Government and individuals, but also we could suffer, our people could suffer severe disruption of their lives and economic activities if we didn't take action against the Mohammeds. The United States government expected these actions. So the first was when we took away their cambio licenses, their license. They were very upset with that. And then the banks moved in and closed their accounts. And then they lost all of their other concessions, etc. So they were pretty upset with us, and they started those discussions with APNU. But it was not hard for them to start those discussions, because as we now know, they had association with APNU even in the period when they were claiming to support us. Because they used to say to people close to us about which minister they were paying off and compromising, basically, in that period when APNU was in office, to make the case against them go away, because the United States of America was sharing information with the government of Guyana about their wrongdoing, but there was no action against them because they were in bed with APNU AFC since then. And GHK Lal confirmed that they were receiving information about these guys. Remember, the investigation started a long time back. So it was not hard for them to resume those discussions and collaboration, and it started since then. So we pointed out very early that we are aware of this collaboration. When we said, and the photographic evidence emerged of the secret meeting that they had with Nigel Hughes. And when it came out, a news story came out, Nigel Hughes responded by saying he met them on legal matters, but he had to have Trotman there for political guidance. Why? You have to be extremely dumb to not understand that the reason why would you need political guidance when you are dealing with a legal matter. So that collaboration started a long time back. Throughout the campaign, we saw it. We saw WIN people building their tents, etc. for them. But evidence of this emerged now, of the confirmation. So not a lot has been said about the bombshell that Darren Wade dropped in last week, or was it this week, when he said that he was directed in August of this year, weeks before the election, by APNU leaders, and he cleared it with Norton to file cases on behalf of the WIN party. He was directed basically by APNU leaders, and Norton gave his approval to file cases on their behalf. Now Darren Wade is a senior member of the PNC. They could have said to him, you stay away from this. These people are our political opponents. And if one wants to go back now and understand why, throughout, although they knew that WIN was cannibalizing their base, why many of the APNU leaders were not taking a position. They were lukewarm in their criticism of WIN, because there was this collaboration. It's either at the party level or through individuals who were either compromised by money or had a long history with the Mohammeds that they did not want revealed. And so that is very evident for the whole country. People are saying, look at what's happening. This man is going into their base. And in fact, they're encouraging him. A lot of the social media people who were pro-APNU suddenly switched to Win. To now you see them, propagating on behalf of Win. So therein lies the explanation about their campaign. They didn't mind. In fact, I don't know if they didn't foresee it, but we forewarned them. I personally said to many of them, you're coming in number 3. You're coming in number 3 in these elections. It's either their hatred of the PPP was so dominant, or they were aware of it, but they were compromised. And I think in the spirit of the collaboration, they were more compromised. That is why they were not fighting back. So when you talk about Win, talking about collaboration with anyone, this is evidence of collaboration. Darren Wade made it clear this week that he got approval from the PNC leadership to support Win. That's one. Up to now, in spite of all the fight, APNU this week put out a statement saying Win should defend themselves. The Mohammeds must come out and defend themselves by revealing, exposing the PPP leaders who were close to them. So they must be compromised by money to be, even at this stage, trying to defend the Mohammeds and talking about due process in the extradition if there is request for extradition. They defend even now the leadership of the PNC, and I believe that many of them may be compromised by money. And then if you look at the last press briefing that Win had, so the press briefing, it was not press conference because they don't take questions. So it was done by 3 persons, Tabitha and her husband, and I think it's Odessa Primus, their general secretary. And all these 3 individuals can be traced back to the PNC. So their lament at the briefing, they were visibly upset, in fact mad, that they were betrayed by family. That was their thing. We are working together. How come we're collaborating all along? And their betrayal was by family, because really, the two of them, the 2 parties, practically are around the same, in spite of what they claim to be. I see Standard saying they're too independent. There is an article that they're too independent. Independent? I want to say something bad, but they were tight in bed together, but they were so offended. Family betrayed us. We are all PNC people. Because I think the PNC didn't see any distinction. It's half of their members already there, and they work tight together. And there's a new Terrence Campbell, my friend, and all of that. And we thought we could work out something. So that was their concern. Imagine the Win people, the 3 of them were concerned, and the team Mohammed, about Burnham's legacy. I thought this was an independent party. That APNU, PNC is betraying Burnham's legacy. So I would not, if I'm a party, their legacy might be the Mohammed, but that's their leader and everybody else. What's their legacy? They're concerned about how APNU is betraying Burnham's legacy, because they become the biggest defender of Burnham's legacy now. Win has become the defender of Burnham's legacy. Burnham would have never done this. Well, Barnum would have done much more. I can tell you about that. But they have become the defender of Barnum's legacy. This is when. That all tells you about the tightness between the two. They're wedded together. They're attached at the waist. They're attached at everywhere else. These parties. So, as I said before, they are offended that the elections in these areas turn out the way they did. So Odessa Primus was very lofty. You know, she's the Democrat. We're the new party, new culture. We want to make sure that people get what they vote for. We're Democrats. We want the voting pattern to be reflected in the leadership of the RDCs. That was her whole contention. They're very lofty, but they emerged and were funded by money from a criminal family. This is a criminal family that was the source of their funding for the elections. So let's examine this loftiness, whether they really meant it and they're really Democrats and they want the will of the people to be reflected in the leadership at the RDCs. So in Region 4, APNU got 46,956 votes, 25% of the votes in Region 4. WIN got 41,627, 23% of the votes. And PPP got 87,536 votes, or 49% of the votes. We got more votes than the two of them combined. But we won the plurality. The people in Region 4 said, we don't want WIN, no, we don't want APNU, we want PPP. But bulk voted for us in Region 4. 87,500 voted for us, 41,000 for WIN and 46,000 for PNC or APNU. How come they were negotiating if they wanted to reflect the plurality and the will of the people in Region 4 to be respected? How come they wanted the vice chairman and APNU will get the chairman? If they're so interested in democracy and independence, it's bullshit. You know that they're talking about this. It's nonsense. If they really believed in that, the PPP should really emerge as the chair. If they believe in that, we won the plurality by a significant number. They didn't even come close to us. We have 46,000 more than WIN and 40-something thousand more than APNU. 41,000. In Region 4, the people in Region 4 spoke. So they were willing to negotiate with APNU. Now, we did not negotiate, let me make it clear. We had no formal negotiation or informal negotiation with APNU. Let me make that clear here today. Nothing of the sort. So they negotiated with APNU, their partners, although Mohammed said, I'm staying independent. They're in bed with APNU to get the vice chair, and APNU will get the chair for Region 4, although they got 40-something thousand votes each. So I found out about the elections, and they're blaming. They said, we got 18 votes, and we have 17 councillors. So that it has to be APNU who voted for us. But could have been a WIN supporter too. Because it's a secret ballot. How come they know that it's APNU who voted for us? How come it's not FGM or WIN supporter? They don't know. They don't know who voted, but that must be a Democrat among their ranks who think it's the PPP won 80-something thousand of the votes, the 87,000 votes. We got 40-something thousand. They should be sharing the region. Might be one person with a good conscience. But they are offended by that. But they were trying to shaft the will of the people of Region 4. That's what they were doing. They're collaborating to shaft the people of Region 4. So, on one hand, they said it's okay to do that, to shaft the people who got the plurality of the vote, the PPP, but in Region 10, we got the plurality, but so we are offended that people voted that way. We have no interest in the leadership of Region 10. The people want WIN and they want APNU. They'll get WIN and APNU. And in Region 7 too, they will get WIN and APNU. Or WIN or APNU. We have no interest in the leadership position. That's the party. And we allowed our councillors in that region to vote however they wished. And whomever they think would, we didn't direct them to whichever they think they support. And at the end of the day, if it goes back, I could easily say to our councillors, abstain and let them fight among themselves. I could say to our three councillors, abstain. So the people voted, let them have them in Region 10. But in Region 4, the people wanted the PPP. And we won it one of the first times we won this region. And so in Region 8 now, guess what happened in Region 8? So we have in Region 8, APNU got 276 votes, WIN got 2,562 votes, and PPP got 2,872 votes. We got 49.81% of the votes. But they wanted to shaft us there too. We got the plurality. And this lofty primus, oh, we are Democrats, it must reflect the will of the people, this is what people want and stuff. How come you can't see that the people wanted the PPP there? So guess what happened in those elections? Secret ballot, the PPP got 8 votes. We don't know if it's a WIN or a new person who voted for us. So we nominated the PNC person because we knew her from a long time. And we thought maybe we should chair the region. WIN also nominated the same PNC person. And then the returning officer said, since both parties nominated this person, there's no need for an election for the vice chair. And there was no election. Since there was only one person nominated by both parties, WIN and the PPP. So, that's my report. So there was no collaboration with the PPP and APNU, but they had to make an issue of it because they were offended with our friends on the other side. Our long-standing partners didn't collaborate with us to get the chairmanship of all of these places. They wanted leadership position, even where in the 2 regions where they didn't win the plurality of the votes, they were won by the PPP. That's what they wanted. They essentially wanted an anti-democratic system. That's what Wynne wanted. And we didn't have no discussion with APNU. They had a formal engagement. Oh, they were offended. They had calls. They were supposed to meet here. You heard the whole story. Who was calling whom? And late into the night and what they were discussing and all of that. They had long discussions with their partners. So that is what took place. They win lies every single day. They present themselves as the victim. Every day they're the victim of some conspiracy, etc. So let's talk a bit about return to the Mohammeds. So they said when they go up to the US, I see they would become a blue canary. They would sing. Now, you remember King Canary and Prince Canary went to Barbados for a singing session. And at that karaoke session, clearly the US prosecutors were not impressed with what they had to say. The singing didn't go too well with them. They were hoping for a plea bargain that would lead to them not being indicted. They were indicted on 11 counts, each carrying 20 years maximum imprisonment. So the singing session didn't go too well for them. The US prosecutors obviously were not impressed with their singing. And I've been urging them to sing for a very long time. In fact, when they claim that he had evidence about PPP collaboration, I've been urging them to sing on everybody. And trust me, if they had anything to sing about the PPP, they would have sung it. The song, you would have had all kinds of songs, all kinds of tune, canary, sparrow, maybe larks, everything. Everything would have been out in the public domain in the campaign period. So they're free to sing. I think the people who are worried about the singing are APNU people, more about the singing. You see one GHK Lal, the thought of the singing has surfaced, and he is suing people. He is panicked. He had a mini singing session with Travis Chase, who he gave a license to, gold license to, although you have to be in good standing. I think Travis Chase is a convict, and you can't get a gold license. You have to carry in police report, all of that. But Travis Chase got it. Travis Chase gave him a forum to do some singing. Imagine, somebody sent me the thing, and he said, like, I never met when I was at the gold board any of these people who were selling gold to the gold board except in the presence of someone else. The man couldn't even trust himself to meet people alone. This is... So there would be a lot of singing going on. You see how quickly he's panicked? He's been cussing me for like every day for the last, maybe, I don't know how many years. And calling everybody under the sun corrupt. We're all corrupt in the PPP. No evidence of it. Calling people corrupt. One thing surfaced, because he was the chairman of the gold board when a lot of the gold was smuggled out. And so let me say this here now, that the GRA, the police, must immediately start the investigation of all of those corrupt officials who collaborated, and the gold board, who collaborated with the Mohammeds in smuggling the gold in every period, in the APNU period as well as the period under the PPP. They must immediately start the investigations. I was asked before the elections about what we are going to do with these officials. And you recall what I said. I said, we don't want these matters to be dealt with now in the election period. There will be time enough after the elections to go after these individuals who have collaborated, and a time is now. And I expect that a full-fledged investigation would be launched into those people who, from the gold board, including GHK, Lal, and the others who may have been complicit in assisting the Mohammeds to evade the massive sum of taxes. Now, you have seen the GRA. I was asked before the election, what is GRA doing about the taxes? Aren't you collecting these taxes? Well, the GRA has sent them the assessment. And you've seen the assessment with the penalties, that it's $191 billion. I told you already that the sums would be substantial on the campaign trail, because you have to calculate the penalties on all of these. And so the GRA has now acted. Let's see the defenders, all of those defenders who believe, who want to beat their chests about rule of law, and they're cleaner than the whistle, but let's see if they're going to support the GRA now, a tax authority in Guyana that can explain every bit of the assessment, how they came up with it. It's a professional agency, whether they will support the GRA to collect the taxes now. Because let's see if STABROEK News, the conscience of Guyana, and the GHRA, and all of these people who talk about transparency in government, well, let's see if they will support GRA to collect those taxes. It's $191 billion only for the years of assessment from 2019 to 2024, I think, because there'll be much more to come after the other investigations, I gather, for other periods in when large amounts of gold were smuggled out of the country. So let us see those who are going to support this. Watch out for them. Let's see what they're going to say, and let's see if the courts, because here in Guyana, because we have some funny things happening in courts here too. You saw the U.S. brought up the same indictment where I think it's on either the wire fraud or the mail fraud case charge, where they have evidence, and I think they have the individual, because in the indictment they didn't name the people, I guess, to preserve the anonymous character of the witnesses and stuff they have. So they have, I saw that, I read it carefully. Obviously, they have the people who they compromised to create the false invoices in the United States to submit to GRA here. We have, when we went to the court, we had the check, that a manager's check issued by a U.S. bank, showing they paid this huge sum that they declared for $75,000, but they paid $680,000 for their Lamborghini. That alone should tell you how much of a stinking liar this guy is. He is just a blatant liar, and he got some people defending it. You're a blatant liar, something that could obviously be proven. Let me see if he's going to tell the judge what excuse he'll go over there, whether he'd have the trolls in the U.S. cussing the U.S. judge when he has to, he can present the evidence there and say, no, it's 75,000 he paid. He present the evidence there. So that will come up back in the courts here. Let me see how the judges will process that now. So clearly, the GHK-LAL and the other enablers might be worried, you know. So I was saying that GHK-LAL said he's not loyal to anyone. He's loyal to the PNC, to the country. And he's above board. He doesn't even shake the hands of presidents, President Granger or Irfan Ali, because he's a clean man. Under APNU, there are two ways you got a job. Either you're loyal or you're corrupt. And if he wasn't loyal, then there's only one other choice. So I hope he's considering that. He could have easily claimed I was loyal to the PNC, and that's why I got the job. But he's saying I wasn't loyal. How did he get that job? That's a cushy job. And that was an important job there. How did he get it? As chairman of the Gold Board under APNU, when you know those positions were preserved for people who could either do things for the minister or the others, or people, or something else. So he has a lot to answer. The shine, he doesn't look so clean anymore. That's why he's panicked. He's running all over like a headless chicken, running around in all the place. It's coming home close to him. So I keep saying to people that the Mohammed camp, especially the Mohammed family, is in full panic mode. They were told by their handlers and the pollsters they would win the elections. As I said before, the lawyers might have told them this too. If you win the presidency, you'd have immunity from prosecution. So try to put all your money, spend money, compromise people, do whatever it takes to win the presidency. And you've been doing well in the polls based on the Facebook thing. I know people like you on Facebook. Put a lot into that. So people would think they'd be happy because they got 16 seats in parliament. They're not happy. They're not a happy lot, because in spite of all of this, they realize they can't run away from accountability for the criminal activities. So now they're going back to emotion. They're quick to play, oh, victim, PPP, conspiracy. So now they're back to the usual thing. When the indictment came through, suddenly he is a member of the Muslim community, and Muslim leaders must give him solidarity. Irfan Ali is a member of the Muslim community. When they were spreading the vile lies about Irfan's mother and the family throughout, they didn't realize he was a member of the Ummah. When they were saying vile things about some of the imams, saying he's a pervert because the guy lost his visa because of the Mohammeds, they didn't realize he was a Muslim leader and a member of the Ummah. When they were taking on members of the family, senior members in clerics in the Muslim community. Suddenly they're in trouble now because of the indictment. They want solidarity from the Muslim community. Secondly, After the indictment, Azruddin Mohammed started quoting scriptures. Psalm 27 verse 2. He is, PPP conspiracy, coming after him, you want to eat his flesh and all sorts of things. We don't want to eat his flesh. He just has to face accountability for his criminal activity. He's quoting religious scriptures now. And then today, or yesterday, another member of the family suddenly is urging the people of Guyana, young people, the Generation Z, to look at Nepal and other countries in the world, in France, where Gen Z has risen up against corruption and against lack of democracy and are overthrowing governments and stuff like that. She wants them to rise up against us to defend them. She wants revolution to defend the Mohammed so they don't face accountability for their criminal activities. Imagine, she wants talking about revolution against corruption, and this is the biggest the corrupt crime syndicate that we have seen for a long time in terms of amount of money evaded. So suddenly they need support from people. They need support from the ordinary people to protect them, because they realize the indictment are here, and if there is an extradition request, then the government of Guyana would have to comply with that extradition request, and that they would then be entitled to tell the court in the US, present all the evidence they have. They can say it's nonsense. It was a PPP conspiracy. They could tell the judge, oh, the PPP caused you to do this. The PPP could tell those prosecutors here in the US to charge us. It's not, you don't have any evidence here. His lawyers could make that case. Why? It's just PPP in Guyana tell President Trump and the others to do this to us. They're going to make that, they will make that. Let's see if they will make that case in the US. So the only reason the Mohammeds, don't worry with the lofty thing, they're concerned about people. He was always there with the amount of taxes evaded. You think the few things that he gave away before the elections or just after the election period, is it motivated by concern? He came into politics. I started off that way by going back to June of 2024 when the sanctions came. He entered politics to save his ass, thinking that it would prevent what is happening now, the indictment from the United States of America. It didn't happen. So we are now, we are working, they're talking about win, saying 2031 they will win. We're looking forward to 2031 with great enthusiasm, the PPP, because they always conk the PPP out. That's the problem they make. That's the mistake they make. Every election, minority government, this can happen, etc. We've proven them wrong over and over again. And 2031 again. They think we're going to be sitting down working. I started off by telling you what our work will be, and things fulfilling our promises, and we'll work for all of our people, including those who didn't vote for us. But we'll support our base too, and those who supported us. I want to say to them today, you will get support. And a lot of you who are trying to see me, you'll get to see me, so don't worry. Many of you have been trying. I'm busy now. We're working on the budget. You'll get a chance to see me. There will be lots of things. All those police who during the campaign and afterwards approached me about promotion, there is a process now, a review process, because many felt they were bypassed, not treated fairly. I want to say to them publicly here now that you can make contact with us. There's a mechanism that the president has asked the police to put in place to review all of those cases to see that people have not been treated unfairly in the promotion exercise. I promise that we're going to get it done. And so we intend to fulfill all the promises. But all of those who've been trying to see me, please give me a little breather until we pass the budget. Soon you'll get a chance to see me. Thank you very much.
Dr. Jadio Michael Rodrigues for the Break News. As much as the PPP is known as the government to deliver on economical promises, so far the intent on enforcing laws that it relates to wrongdoing by politicians, whether it would have been what has happened between 2015 and 2020 by APNU or the Mohammeds, or now what's been found to be the collusion of JHK Lal. It's all been just rhetoric. Nothing has been delivered so far. Can the Guyanese people expect a time period when the PPP government will get serious with this kind of corruption?
No, but give me a case. Give me a case. We got several people charged for trying to steal the elections. It's been a nightmare for us to get the hearings started. This question should be directed to the judiciary too. I keep saying this. So in other countries, this is moved with speed, great speed. And until now, we haven't completed that. We had a whole set of false starts because they didn't want to convict the people, because it's clear that they were trying, 3 persons were part of a plot to steal the last election. There's strong evidence for that in 2020. Strong, irrefutable evidence. No court will review that evidence and not convict a person, but they don't want to do it. So they just don't, they drag on the case, nobody wants to hear it, they start it, drop it, etc. That's it. Not because of a lack of will. I told you that after the elections, we're going to come back to the tax cases. We have come back to the tax cases. I told you before the elections that we will go after all the people complicit in customs, in GRA, in the police, and in the gold board with the smuggling of gold. We are doing it now. I just urge publicly these agencies to do the investigation. I can't do it myself, but as politicians, publicly we're saying it. It should be done. It has to be done. And people have to face consequences too. So we take this seriously.
Given your acceptance that some sections of the judicial system acts in rogue manners, do you think you'd be able to execute an extradition request is made? Do you think, and if you're confident, if there are any shortcomings with the judicial system and the police force in ensuring an extradition request is expedited, if things don't go as they should, what will be the government's response?
Well, an extradition request, we've had several. Several people have been extradited from Guyana, and the courts have moved this swiftly. Let's see if, when you have money, if it makes a difference. We're going to be watching carefully, and not only us, the international community. So people should have natural justice. They must have due process, every Guyanese, but also you can have natural justice and due process and move the case along. Move it along. Because look at election petition. Election petitions are supposed to be heard continuously, until you conclude it. A court could easily have 2 or 3 days of intense presentation of arguments at every level and then give a ruling. Doesn't have to be long and drawn out. They would like that. The Mohammeds are gearing up for that. They hope that they can do that. What we have to be vigilant to as a society, we have to see if there is double standard in the judiciary, because we have extradited people before.
Adio, recently, only yesterday, you mentioned it earlier, Hannah Mohammed, one of the younger Mohammeds, made public statements for Nepal-like revolution in Guyana, some of the wording really adds up to inciting public terror, and past WPA members would have been charged for things like that. Why do you think the police is not acting on things like this?
I don't, they may very well be acting. I don't know if they're acting, but I just spoke about that. But they are hoping to instigate or stir up young people to protect themselves, not to protect. They don't have an iota of concern about democracy, about people welfare, about this country or corruption. They are concerned about corruption. They want to protect themselves. That's why I'm saying they're in full panic mode now. People can see it in their faces and their actions. They're in panic mode. All of these statements, they all have one common thread running through them: desperation. Desperation. But the police, if there is anything that is seditious or treasonous, the police have to deal with that matter. I'm dealing with it politically here today at the party's headquarters, because I want to see who will go and protest for the Mohammeds, for the US not to extradite or not to indict Mohammed. They can go and protest in the US if they're all the ones who are living abroad. They can go there now and protest there too. Let's see if they will do that.
In that statement, Dr. Jagdeo, are you concerned that in the extradition process, which will take a few weeks, the longest, are you concerned that we could have a rehash of what happened after the Adriana Young's death?
No,
given
I'm not going to speculate about and deal with what if here. We will deal with it. First of all, if an extradition request comes to us, we will deal with it appropriately. There is a procedure laid out in our law. It doesn't say Mohammed has a procedure and every other citizen should be subjected to a different one. There's one procedure here in Guyana that is in our law as to how a government must deal with extradition requests. That is the procedure that we will follow. If there are attempts to disrupt the country or the police in doing their work, or the AG's chamber, that will be dealt with separately and appropriately. Separately and appropriately.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo. Kiana Wilberg with the Starting Point podcast.
Yeah.
A few questions for you.
Sure.
I noticed in your introduction, very comprehensive introduction, that you laid down the law on the fact that the government will not accept any slapdash work which could hinder the integrity of the 40,000 homes that you hope to have done over the 5-year period. But I too have also received complaints from citizens who have received some of the homes, and they spent a lot of money.
Yes, and this is what we want to correct now going forward. You can't correct it what happened in the past because those homes are built. But if we approve the building material, so if we approve the method of construction, and it's done in a way, they would have to be periods in which these people have to remedy the work, etc. So the contracts will deal with remedial work, you know, a period in which you have like a 1-year period or maybe 6 months where any fault observed in the home for that period would have to be fixed at the contractor's expense, etc. So a lot of those things would be in the contract. Right, there will be lots of protection. That's what because of that concern that we live in the same society. We go down the street, we go to the corner shop, we hear the same people. We're a small country. And so all of the complaints you hear, I hear them more, every day. People call me and say, this thing didn't happen, the house somewhere is cracking, the window is not leaking, something is wrong with it. I hear that a lot. And then you talk to the contractors, and some of them are so arrogant because, you know, they have so much work. They say, oh, I'm not fixing that, because they go off to work in the private sector. They're not looking for government work anymore. There's so much work out there for them to do that they don't have to come to you anymore. So this is a huge problem we have, and we're trying to fix it.
Similarly, with the homes that you laid down the law on, the roads as well. There are some instances where you find that the roads, they're high quality, that's done, and then in some instances you find that it's not on par with what you would see in other places.
So I explained that before, that we sometimes have variable quality, and you require more supervision, but it's a consequence of us also trying to be more democratic by giving more people work. So if you have one contractor doing a whole road, a big contractor, you can supervise the uniformity of the road, test the batching plant, see that the PSI of the concrete is of a certain quality, check the steel, do everything, the method of installing the steel and everything cement. You can pay more attention to it. When you have on that road 15 contractors now working, right, with different levels of experience, because you want to help people get a small contract, then you experience this sort of problem. So it's something we have to look at too. It's the same thing with drains. Because when we're going to start doing these drains, you don't want one man to build, so everybody building the drain with a gradient to take the water out. And then suddenly in the middle of it, if you have 5 lots, the middle lot, 2 on both sides, is very high. So then suddenly the water stops there, you can't drain the water. So it's a challenge when you try to get more contractors involved. But if we only focus on the big guys, they have so much work, they don't do it on time too. So the only reason we managed to build so many community roads is because we gave out to small people. But then sometimes the quality gets affected a little bit. So we'd have to try to improve on that. Hopefully when people have more experience, some of them did it the first time and stuff, then it will change. And that's why we may have to look at proper molds for the concrete drains. You don't want ugly looking drains too. You know, maybe the precast drains with nice molds and all of that, so the place looks really neat and uniform. One man just putting some old cardboard and pouring the concrete, and then the drains look ugly in the villages or in the city that we're going to build. So it is a big task ahead of us. It's a big task ahead of us, and we have limited number of engineers too. So that's why you have to work overtime to get this done. And then you get the heat if one thing is not done well. Although you can't check everything at the same time.
I want to switch, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go on.
I want to switch quickly to oil and gas. You responded to EXXONMOBIL's Mr. Rutledge, and you noted in essence, and I want to ensure that I have this correct, I understand this correctly, that Guyana is going to determine its own destiny regarding the gas resources and monetization.
2 things we said. We said this project has to happen, and it has to happen soon. It must become a priority for everyone, for Exxon, for the government of Guyana, and the other partners. That we want a revenue stream to flow from the gas early to Guyana. That in determining the feasibility of the project, which will determine the raising of capital for the project and the attractiveness of the project, the project developers, which include Exxon and the others, can look at every option. One, bringing the gas onshore for industrial purposes, which is a bit more challenging because it requires everything, pipelines and stuff. Two, LNG through a floating platform. Three, taking the gas to Trinidad because there was that request. They have to study every option and then determine which is the most feasible to make that. What if they say, oh, take LNG off the table and then say, you know, to bring it onshore will take 10 years and also we're not sure, we need to create the demand first. Then they get a free pass. When an LNG option could be a feasible option and can be done swiftly. But he is taking it off the table already by saying it's not a priority. I don't want it taken off the table in the assessment. We're saying don't take it off the table. Now, I think it's premature for him to say this.
Over in Suriname, we saw a recent report on the Demerara waves that Suriname has now walked back a promise that it's made to its people for an oil royalty payout. I want you to talk a bit about how this stacks up against the government's cautious approach. Because when Suriname first made this announcement, there were calls flowing in for Guyana to do the same, following the same footsteps. What's your take now?
Yes, so my argument then was there's much talk about a signing bonus. I asked President Santoki, where's the money? How much money? And I don't think there was a major signing bonus that was delivered to Suriname. So people like to compare the two. Secondly, I argued at that time, every country could have its own model. But if you give $750,000 as a lifetime share to individuals, and then you say we'll give you every year an annualized payment on the basis of this shareholding that you have, a return on it, you may get a tiny return. You may get a tiny return. If a 10%, maybe $75 a year, US dollars. It's 750 US dollars. Our model in the first year alone was about $500. And that's first year alone. So, and there'll be many more cash grants. So when you look at the time value of money, ours, we transfer more money directly to people than this initiative would do. And then Suriname has to raise a significant amount of money to take up equity. The contract provides, their law provides for the state to take equity in projects. We've opted out of that because we say the oil and gas sector is a risky industry. You can spend $500 million on exploration and find nothing, as has happened already here in Guyana. And therefore, you're risking public funds. We said we prefer in the future to take our benefits through higher royalty payment, like 10% now, some taxes, 10% taxes from zero, and we're changing also how much goes to the cost back, 65% rather than 75%. That's how we'll benefit. We opted out of equity. They were going to, the model there provides to Suriname to take equity, but they have to raise capital now to take up their share of equity in the project. And the country has major problems raising capital because of its debt profile. It has major problems raising capital. So that is one of the reasons why they may have walked this back. The promise of giving every Surinamese this share. So, but that's for Suriname. We're looking out for Guyana and our people. But sometimes in an attempt to make everything we do here look bad in the PPP, they would take a crappy initiative from some country. I'm not saying this one is, but from any part of the world, and say, oh, it's a great thing. Look what they did. The PPP now doing this in Guyana. They don't look at the context of all that we're trying to do. Like how they tried to make out that Vikram Bharat was talking only about cash grant, about the model of development in Guyana, when our development model is very different, and cash grant is just part of the development model.
From me, Dr. Jagdeo. And I think I noted earlier in a previous interview with the president that Guyana is exiting the UN Council at the end of this year. But
Yes.
I would love to hear from you what you believe to be the hallmarks of our leadership during this time.
Yeah, so it's very early to do an assessment and to speak of it at this stage because we'd still be there for a while. We'd be on the Security Council. But so far, Guyana laid out some of the things that it believes in and that it wanted to pursue. And we have been a very solid voice for international peace and for the respect of rule of law globally, and to support humanitarian initiatives across the world. And we're very, very pleased. Caroline Rodrigues, we're extremely proud of her. She's done a really great job. She has enormous respect and credibility in the Council and in the UN. So she has really lifted our country's profile at that level because of the solid nature of her participation and engagement and her thoughtfulness. So she is really, really an asset, a huge asset to us in the United Nations and on the Security Council. And she receives appropriate guidance from the President and the Foreign Minister.
General Brian NCN, one of your administration's bigger infrastructure projects is the Currenty River Bridge. Can you provide any updates on this and specifically the plans for the duty-free zone? And following up on your Exxon comments, are you aware of the status of the agreement with Fulcrum?
No, I know that there have been some further discussions with Fulcrum. I've not been part of those discussions. I'm working on other things. But I just wanted to set the frame here. And the framework is we want to monetize the gas as early as possible. We're going to be pushing everyone to do so. We want to make sure that all the options are on the table when we discuss and finalize the project. And we're looking for maximum benefit for our people from this project. That's the framework. And so all parties have to have that same orientation here. The Quarantine River Bridge, that is a project that is a collaborative project with Suriname. So it will move at the pace at which we can reach agreement on funding and all of that. It would move. It's not like how we can approach other matters unilaterally. Like in Guyana's case, we have to build the Berbice Bridge. We went out to tender. We're now negotiating with the contractors. We would have to find the money, so we go out and raise our money on our own. We don't have to wait on a second party to do that, to fund the bridge. We can get it started. With Suriname, it has implication for border matters. They have to raise their share of the resources. I already spoke about the difficulties with public finance in Suriname, so they have an additional difficulty when trying to raise substantial sums of money. So it remains a priority for us, but it's a joint project. And so that will determine, the collaboration will determine the pace at which we can move in that regard. In the Berbice area, we have already made it clear that with the land in Skellon, the factory, about 26,000 acres, plus another 40,000 from the farmers there, and then with the road from Molson Creek to Oriala that we're proposing, which we put some money in the budget next year on, that will open up more lands. We're talking about maybe 100,000 minimum, 100,000 acres, 150,000 acres of land that we will bring into agro-processing and plantation type agriculture, an agro-industrial complex with all the logistics there for that area in Berbice. That would also be buttressed by the New Hope-like canals that we're building, which would irrigate another maybe 30,000, I think 25,000 acres of land in another part. It's 25 or 30,000, yes, somewhere around that. I think in region 5 it's 55,000, yes. So more lands would be opened up there. So major agro-industrial ventures. You've heard the president been speaking quite a bit about the agro-industrial ventures that we're hoping to support.
Good afternoon, Trina Williams, Guyana.
This is outside of the industrial hub we're trying to create also in Berbice, surrounding gas and energy and all of that.
Good afternoon, Trina Williams, Guyana Chronicle. I want to come back to the government aggressively pursuing its land and housing policy,
Sure.
but more on the legislative side. Our property laws have been criticized, especially by the CCJ. Is there, especially when it comes to how title is held and land conveyance, is there any consideration by the government to amend?
I didn't see that, because I think we have a clear case of the titles and transport, right? But and I don't know what was the nature. I haven't seen this.
No, it's not a current issue at the CCJ, but it has been brought up.
There was corruption in the past. Huh?
And fraud, especially with transports.
Transport what?
When it comes to certain cases like Marlene and Todd, where we saw fraud with transport.
Oh, fraud, yes, that's it. But the fraud, there's nothing wrong with the system. It's people. I've known some cases where people fraudulently transfer property to others, you know, and because of corruption in the registry or somewhere else. So that's corruption. You got to tackle the corruption. But you recall I said before the elections that we have to explore blockchain technology for a number of areas where we have, like the land registry, like Lands and Survey Department, where GGMC, where people make an application. Sometimes it works on a first come first serve basis. They go on the land, they find some gold, somebody come and displaces them. They get one guy in GGMC to throw away the paper, and then the man loses his property there, or what he was working on. So the way you tackle this is through blockchain analysis for storage of information. But if there is corruption, we should take action against the people who are corruptly involved in this. I wonder if a private action could be taken against a person who's corruptly transported my land to them. Maybe there is, but I didn't see anything wrong in the system. That's what. And the laws deal more with the system. The law can't say stop being corrupt. That's implied. You shouldn't be corruptly transporting people's land. I don't know if you had a specific idea. It seems like there's a matter close to your heart on this one. Someone stole your land or your family's land. You can let me know what the details are, right? But the system, we have two systems, right? The old system, and we moved to titles because it allows us to give people more ownership documents for larger groups. The transport system where you have to go through the registry, the gazetting, and all of that. It's a bit archaic and slow, and that's why we move more to the land titling system, which is a new system. I see the STABROEK news coming late now. Slow, you just come like you all heard, and they sent you over with a question there.
My apologies for being late, sir.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo. STABROEK News, Committee Slow. My question, there is a global maritime agreement that CARICOM countries are expected to sign on. It is to reduce carbon emission from ships. Is Guyana signing on to this? Can you say?
So, I don't know what stage it is in CARICOM. I've not followed that, but we would have, at some stage, we have to examine emissions from vessels coming into our region. Globally, there's a move to reduce the carbon emission from these vessels. My point is the whole world is retreating from their obligations under the UNFCCC process. The United States of America has made it clear they don't believe in the agreement. This is one of the biggest emitters on a per capita basis in the world. If the United States of America and many developed countries are now going to cut their emissions, why should the developing world that produces a fraction of the global emission be running behind all of these initiatives right now in the world? That's what we have to ask ourselves this. And I think this will come up at the COP in Belém. That how much, if we stop emitting zero, we turn off all of our lights and shut down all of our cars and everything else, and we stop Exxon, we're not producing, we will not save the world 0.2% of 0.2 of 1% of global emission. If we go back to Stone Ages, we all start wear clothes and walk around in Guyana and stuff like that. Nothing. We don't use anything. We go back to that period when we were, since we were evolving from a long time back. We all go back there. That's how it is. So how can we make the biggest impact on the world? The ships coming in to the Caribbean.
Aware of the agreement?
So I'm gonna look at it, because sometimes these perspectives, to be frank with you, I have not been engaging these matters even at CARICOM level, so I don't. It comes to me occasionally, but I have a different perspective on some of these matters, and I think I like to do commonsensical things. We have to examine that. People sometimes sign on to these things, and then later there's no enforcement mechanism. So if a ship comes in now and they breach the emission level, how would it be measured and what would be the penalty? On which port? Who will levy the payments? Those kinds of things, yeah. Who will collect the fine? Okay. Yeah, sure.